Lamias, harpies, slimes, and mermaids. These are all dangerous creatures. And then people asked, but what if they were anime girls? Thus, the idea of Monster Girls was born. The rise of Monster Girls can be found in places like Monster Girl Encyclopedia and Monster Musume, but one game in particular helped popularize Monster Girls in how dangerous and yet sensual, almost domineering they truly are. Monster Girl Quest, where one half of Monster Girl Quest is an epic journey to help both humans and monsters alike in coexistence, the other half is being devoured by powerful, sadistic monster girls. Super spicy, smutty style. But make no mistake, for many people, this title is what it truly means to come for the plot and stay for the plot. We begin Monster Girl Quest like any other aspiring fantasy heroic tale. Our young boy Luca sets out from his hometown to embark on an adventure to defeat the dreaded Monster Lord, in hopes of creating a world where humans and monsters coexist peacefully. But on the day of his hero's baptism, he comes across an unconscious Lamia monster girl. He chooses to help her, unfortunately missing out on the goddess's ceremony in the end. The monster girl named Alice mocks Luca's dream of coexistence, but to his surprise, decides to join him as he sets out on his journey, despite not being a blessed hero. Now, of course, this game shouldn't be mistaken about what it is. An Aero RPG where domineering monster girls overwhelmingly assert their power over our boy Luca, and you'll get exactly what it's advertised for. But I, for sure, wasn't expecting an actual phenomenal story to come out of it too. One with great likable characters, genuine heartwarming moments, and an aspiring, moving message about monster-human coexistence. And I'll get to that much later. But first, I have to address how Luca's gonna protect his holy virginity first. It is up to you, the player, to help Luca fend off against the hungry females. If you lose, Luca is subjected to some very rough punishment, being captured and suck the ever-living soul out of him until he's a withered, dry pile of bones. There's a lot of monster girls in here, each with their own unique and varied ways to drain and milk them for all he's worth. Really, all of the writing in the H scenes is monster femdom with every fetish imaginable, and they are ravenous, with the worst ones straight up voring him until his body is annihilated as the poor man drowns in pleasure. Losing in this game results in these obscene acts, but the third game in particular has a lot of vor. Like, a lot of it. It is outright horrifying at times. There, the monsters stop being categorized as plants or animals, but cosmic eldritch abominations instead. Monster Girl Quest takes anything from animals, bugs, vegetables, to inanimate objects, puts a human face on it, any number of female parts on it, with no limit on how many parts you can put on it, and calls it a monster. Chimeras are in here, but you are gravely mistaken if you think chimeras is only this thing. It's no wonder why people in this world are terrified of them. But that sure ain't stopping some men from diving into those massive slits head first, player included. And you are welcome to enjoy these optional scenes at your leisure, at least for the people willing to accept Monster Girl Quest for what it is. Because without a doubt, again, it's a very rough game. I don't know how you can miss it because it's in the damn title. What a surprise. But of course, that's only if you lose. The gameplay is a very simple turn-based RPG. Hit them hard enough until they go down and avoid taking damage. Every turn you will gain SP, and SP can be used to summon support spirits and unleash massive damaging attacks. If you take damage from those dangerous attacks from those naughty monsters, you can consume SP to meditate and heal yourself. There's even tactical options like edging and surrendering. But who in their right mind would do that? We must keep strong, for it's up to you, the player, to protect Luca's bodily innocence, because for some weird and strange reason, every monster in here resorts to using pleasure attacks, as if they're trying to send a message or something. What's amusing about Monster Girl Quest is that while it is a typical turn-based RPG, a decent amount of battles in here are sequenced like gimmick puzzles. In some instances, you'll need to do a specific set of actions in order to defeat the monster. There's a fair bit of strategy to some of these fights, and it only gets more complex the further the story continues. I really like this, despite me dying way too many times, because at a certain point in the story, Luca gets way too damn strong. Dude can output damage. Given I may have spammed a certain move way too much. On the chance that you do lose, because there are some pretty damn hard fights in here, you can always ask the goddess Ilias for some helpful tips, to which she just tells you how to beat them after she looks at you with disgust for enjoying the monster's punishment. I'm not ashamed for relying on her, especially when I lose to just plain dumb luck. Enough where I certainly don't feel bad for nuking enemies turn 1. That eventual endgame strength is honestly a testament to how far Luca's come in his adventure, from struggling against goblins and slimes to conquering otherworldly titans and undead behemoths, all while the hypest music plays in the background. And to think, this all started from a boy who threw salt at a snail in order to win. Monster Girl Quest at first seems like a quirky gimmick title. It's an H game where monster girls have fun with you if you lose. But really, it's an H game where its premise is taken to its maximum story potential. The typical scenario of harpies kidnapping men actually has more weight behind it here, for this is only one of the many societal issues damaging human and monster relationships. While you could claim that the female harpies are the villains, traveling over to their village leads you to see that the harpies kidnapped them not because of anything malicious, but because they were afraid of dying out as a race. They cannot breed without a human male partner, thus they have no choice but to kidnap them. They can't ask normally because humans hate monsters. Now, it's not like this village is the only one having problems. Every town/place that Luca and Alice end up visiting offers its own unique interracial issues around the monster-human dynamic. In one village, a monster witch has fully taken over, capturing humans to use in her twisted experiments. In another, we see a society of elves and fairies scheming to reclaim their land from the humans. And in one kingdom, the king and its citizens exploit monster girls, forcing them into grueling labor. For as much as the monster girls are a danger to human society, the humans are just as capable of harming monster civilization too. There's even monster infighting. In one place, Luca discovers a war breaking out between plant creatures and insect monsters over territory. Every situation Luca and Alice face questions the idea of monster-human coexistence and whether or not it can even work at all. The racial biases and grudges can run very deep within some individuals, and it proves to be very difficult to overcome. Because of that, it's no wonder that both humans and monsters see peaceful coexistence as wishful thinking. Luca, however, is very serious about it, and it's through his perseverance and convincing nature that things begin to change, one monster at a time. Luca may be one small, breedable boy, but he sure is determined. He missed his official church baptism, but he still set off on his adventure regardless. The goddess commanded him to slay monsters, but he ended up going on a journey with one of them anyway. He's not technically a hero, but that's not stopping him from striving to do heroic acts. The boy's a walking contradiction, and it turned out to be a great showing of his character and journey. At first, he talks about an ideal world where monsters and humans can live peacefully together. Sure, the female Lamia next to him is mocking his idealistic dream, but Luca shrugs it off, not knowing that things aren't as simple as he initially thought. Sure, some problems can be solved by Luca stealing the big bad villain in the village, but what's the solution in dealing with a monster whose hatred is arguably justified? Slimes occupying an area may look like a nuisance at first glance, but upon closer inspection only reveals that they were merely protecting one of their last homes from human pollution. It's not just external issues too. Luca's own beliefs are brought into question. Important figures and principles he respected and acknowledged growing up becomes more ambiguous and uncertain as he experiences more of the world. The goddess he believes in may have commanded him to slay all monsters, for they are evil beings that must be destroyed on sight. But when he sees his female Lamia friend chowing down on sweets, I think Luca might think otherwise. It's through meeting all sorts of individuals in his journey, both humans and monsters, that make him question, develop, and even reconsider his own principles. Are they what he truly believes in, or was it just simply blind faith that he simply obeyed? That character development is something worth watching. The newfound spirit he gains after acknowledging his naivety and declaring his resolve ends up inspiring other people and persuading them of his beliefs. And a big part of that change is because of the totally ordinary monster girl right beside him. Alice, the female Lamia monster, is just as much of a central figure to this story as Luca is. She makes fun of Luca's dreams of coexistence, but she tags alongside him in his journey, just to see how far his beliefs can take him. What is basically the start of a monster tsundere, a description that is very much accurate for her. In contrast to our innocent, optimistic young hero, Alice is rather cynical and aloof. She has no restraint when it comes to criticizing Luca for his ignorance and lack of ability. Despite that though, she teaches him valuable skills to increase his combat ability, given that she mysteriously disappears during monster fights for some very obvious reasons. Alice is here to offer her own perspective, a viewpoint of the situation from the monster side, although it's more direct criticism at times. She even provides insight on the ordeals surrounding the current monster lord, as she is very acquainted with her, again, for some very obvious reasons. I very much like Alice. She pokes holes into Luca's naive ideals and forces him to question his beliefs, as well as the absurdities of his goddess Elias. But she's also willing to see this through. Their journey is them bonding and growing together, because just like Luca, she also confronts some personal vulnerabilities too, all from her past. A lot of characters in here are shaped by their past experiences, not only because of some traumatic event, but also because of the expectations by previous generations. There's an underlying element in Monster Girl quests in how those passed down principles actually end up becoming burdens for people in the present, even pressuring people to think they have to atone for the consequences their predecessors have made in the past. But as the story continues, we see that these characters can ultimately change and break free from those pre-established norms to follow their own code of conduct. It's these moments that make me believe in Monster Girl Quest as a legitimately good story, not just about its idealistic message, but also being character-driven as well. The types of stories I am a big fan of. Through Luca and Alice talking with each individual and seeing how they are affected by these monster-human relationships gives these interactions a more personal feel to it. Every person has their own reason for their behavior, both good and bad. It's not a black and white situation too, and thus when Luca and Alice resolve their situations, it comes across a lot more meaningful and impactful. Now, of course, as emotionally moving and morally upstanding Monster Girl Quest surprisingly is, it also delivers another particular type of energy from a fantasy JRPG. For when it's time for Luca to seriously throw down, it's going to be one hell of a fight. Miss Monster Lord might be a foreboding opponent, but her subordinates, the 4 Heavenly Knights, shouldn't be shrugged off either. All of them are interesting, appealing, and intimidating in their own special way. Again, as I've said before, everyone moves to their own motivation, and they are no different. They just so happen to be strong as hell. Elma, my favorite of the bunch, is whimsical and carefree, but is a force to be reckoned with in combat. Tamamo is playful and fun, yes, but fighting her is like sparring against a veteran mentor, testing to see if we're truly ready. Confronting Arobeti has so much packed meaning behind it that her final fight isn't just simply a physical one, and going toe-to-toe with Granberria fills me with so much shonen battle energy for their final confrontation is legendary. Those are just the ones I can tease you. There's plenty of really cool battle sequences. Sure, the combat is making the screen shake a lot and a low-res picture of an explosion from time to time, but when a fight hits, it absolutely does. Most of the average goon fights are whatever, but for those few specific ones, ooh, they are epic as hell. And when it's paired with the meaning for Luca's fight, him desperately trying to persuade his enemy, it doesn't have to be like this, we can strive for a better world together, that makes it all the more satisfying, as the hype music plays in the background for more than 30 seconds. Preparing for the fight against the 4 Heavenly Knights may be the typical fantasy zero to hero story, but it's a tried and true narrative for good reason. Luca going across the vast continent, helping the people around him, obtaining the 4 elemental spirits, and training to fight against the monster lord and her subordinates, each one extremely powerful opponents, as the story builds to their final confrontation. And then, even after that, Monster Girl Quest flips the script in its third part, taking on a brand new direction, but with the same thematic spirit and message as before. Monster Girl Quest might be an Arrow game, but it's got that traditional fantasy JRPG DNA in it, and I absolutely love it. Now, important side note, Monster Girl Quest is a collection of 3 separate parts, each one continuing Luca's grand adventure, and I'm reading this with an unofficial translation by Rogue Translator. That said, there is a fan-made remastered version of Monster Girl Quest. Features include upscaled resolutions to 720p and 1080p graphics, overall performance optimization, bug, typo, and grammar fixes, and even the ability to save at any point in the game. Shout out to all the veteran fans out there. That's right, no more save locations. It's one hell of an improvement, all thanks to Lugia19 and Sorais. And I would have loved to have played this if I didn't beat the game first and discovered it shortly after. It really is a great game, and I'm not the only one to say that. Plenty of people who've played this will tell you about its amazing qualities. Great, likable characters, fun comedic moments, some genuinely moving character scenes, and a solid inspirational message. Don't be dissuaded by its H content, otherwise you'll end up missing out on one very unique title. Or fully dive in. It is, after all, one of the most popular Nuki out there. If you're interested in another amazing and unique title, you want to check out this video over here, or click this one for some general visual novel recommendations. I would also like to thank everyone on Patreon for supporting me in covering visual novels. You guys are fantastic, and if you'd like to be a part of that effort, please consider subscribing. And lastly, here are my ending stats. How was your experience? Because to those who played this, surely you didn't do as bad as me, right?